think we're good there. We're good there. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hey, what's up, Dragon X? I think, let's see. Alright, well, that's freaky because there's enough of a delay. I think you can see what I'm doing. Alright, we got, let me add my YouTube thing. Fantastic. Cool. So this is going to be a 10-room dungeon, Dragon X. I'm following a blog post from the Priestess of Spiders called 10-room dungeon in 30 minutes in 2020. It gave us a... Let me pull up the Google Doc. But like earlier this week, we rolled up the encounter details, and now I'm just putting it together as a map. By me. There we go. Yeah, so we got this thing. Plague Shrine, Sewers of the Irresistibly Attractive Vermin, which is, vermin are like a great value Skaven. And then we used a free website, Dungeon Scrawl, to draw a map using those prompts. I thought Dungeon Scrawl used to be free for commercial use, but apparently that has changed. There's like a version 2 that got dropped like a month ago, which is what you're looking at here. That now requires a premium subscription, but you can go into the about on the loading page and still load the old, here we go, the original V1 Dungeon Scrawl, which is completely free for commercial use. So I just remade the map, exported it as a PNG image file, and let me put this back up here out of the way, and that's what you're looking at here. And so today we're just going to go through, this is a free drawing app called Krita. I have a really fancy display that I can draw on with a pen. But I just got started, let me grab it here. I got started with one of these $40 drawing tablets. It's not a screen. It's sort of like the giant version of like the touchpad on a laptop that you can draw on with one of these pens. But just so that I can draw and show the screen all in one, I'm just going to use my fancy one. Like I said, that's a Huion HS64. They were like $40, and I think you can get them. I think I saw one for like $25. There's a couple of brands. There's Huion, there's X-Pen, and there's a third one that are all kind of like Wacom is the really famous like fancy brand. They're all kind of the more budget lines of those, but this thing, I've had it for a year, and this thing is great. Let's see, do I have my YouTube chat box someplace? I don't think so. There's that. I kind of ran out of time. I realized that I can't use the map that I get from Dungeon Scrawl, the new version, for free. Because the plan of this whole thing is, so the first day we rolled up a random, like I had no ideas what this was going to be. We rolled up entries for all of these little rooms. The next day, we threw together a little map and a free thing. Today, I'm going to go in, and the point of today is to fill in just like the little greeblies. If you've ever seen a Dyson Logos map, which these are kind of based on, let me pull one up for you. Here we go. And I'll just drop it right here in Krita. Oh, Jesus. Just do this. Oh my goodness, there's so many options. There we go. So if you look at a Dyson, Dyson's Logos map, see how it has all these little doohickeys in it all over the place that kind of give you a feel for what the room's about. This one doesn't have a whole lot of like themed ones, but sometimes you'll see little like there'll be a broken box or there'll be like a cot that kind of give you at a glance like, all right, so here's the bedrooms and here's a kitchen and here's like up in this corner, this looks like catacomb, like sarcophaguses in a little, temple of some kind. Well, that's hyperfocuses, Dragon Necks. That's how I get so dedicated to this stuff. I have ADD, my executive function doesn't work, so... we just fall into the abyss. You can also just, it's Dyson Logos, here. Like the vacuum cleaners. Oh god, of course you can't, like, read what that says. There you go. Dyson Logos. Dyson's really great. He draws a ton of things. A bunch of these are free. You can just jump on his website and grab a bunch of these. Some of them are even commercially available. But he live streams 2 or 3 times a week. That all he does is hand draw all these maps just constantly. He's also featured in a bunch of stuff. I think he's been in some WotC, some 5e things. But he's pretty well known like in the OSR side of things. But he's really famous for doing this this cross-hatching style. And that's what the website that I was using, Dungeon Scrawl, see, it's trying to like replicate the look of his thing, his stuff. So we're just gonna go in and like, so I'm using this digital thing, which makes it really easy for me to share with everyone. You can also just print one of these out and then get a pen and do the exact same thing I'm about to do with like a pen. And it just takes your, this free thing that I threw together. And this website's really easy to use. I'm literally just dragging shapes to make these things. It's super fast. I think throwing this copy of it together took me like 6 minutes before the stream. Yeah, the MCDM monster book looks really cool. I'm a big fan of his... It's not action-oriented monsters. That's the second one that he did. It's an earlier one. I think he's talking about changing a Medusa. There's one that's like that, and then there's another video that's... I think it's called Making 4E More Fun. Or, I'm sorry, Making 5E Combat More Fun with 4E, where he talks about some of the design philosophy that eventually became that Flea Mortals like book. Yeah, I don't have I've seen a couple of the test things. Yeah, I didn't back the project or anything. I don't play enough 5e. I've picked up a few 5e things and it's too much system for me. Personally, I like something much more rules light and more we can make it all up on the fly. Especially because I make a lot of stuff, and when I'm thinking about God, like trying to write a creature, like the worst would be trying to make a creature in like 3rd edition. That's like the epitome of like the worst that I'm trying to avoid. Me either. Same. I haven't played a whole lot this year. I was playing a ton. I was playing 4 or 5 games a week with different games, like like alternating weeks for the actual game. So like in a month, I was in like 12 campaigns, and then that dropped off. I've recently started. Somebody had like an open table. Like a mega dungeon crawl that we started, and then another friend reached out and is doing a similar campaign. Both of those games are using old school essentials, which is just the D&D from the 80s. Like when you watch Stranger Things and you see that red box that those guys are playing, like that. That's what it is. Oh. Let's pull up the actual list of things that are in here. And we can take a screenshot. And we're going to paste it. Doing this again. Perfect. Now, why can't... So I don't use Krita a whole lot. Oh, yes, Morkborg. So most people, if you're not familiar with the OSR, you've probably heard of Morkborg. And the basic underlying system of Morkborg is very OSR. Yeah, Morkborg is great. I can't wait for Pirate Borg, the Pirates of the Caribbean kind of the weird. That whole genre of like pirates and zombies. But there's a Morkborg variant Pirate Borg coming out soon. I've had the PDF for a while. Especially for something that's like so art focused, it's hard for me to look at my phone at a PDF and read it like that. What in the world? Oh, I'm struggling while I'm trying to pay attention to multiple things. Anyone who does this regularly is much respect. Jesus. Struggle bus in here. Good grief. How did this get moved? I usually use Affinity Designer and the Affinity Suite's all of my shortcuts don't work. But anyway, here's the list of what the rooms have in them. So I'll at least have this. Yeah, it's it's bad. It's real bad. All right. So, I think this one's like this. There we go. Find my way around here. Oh, and so I was looking at the dungeon scroll thing, and yeah, you gotta use the old version. The new version, it's not all commercial. I forget if I said that. Hey, what's up, other Jordan? And I got all new like brush packs the other day. I really like Krita. Krita has a really cool. It's sort of like Procreate in that the brushes can do really cool things. Like I can get really realistic watercolor stuff. If you saw my any of my content of my time lapses, Krita has a really cool built-in time lapse feature too, where it automatically takes. Oh, cool! Yeah, I really like OSE. I really like like modifying the hell out of it. It's a good kind of like a base chassis for things. But it's really nice. It's really easy to pick up, and you know, within 20 minutes, I think we all had characters and we were all ready to go. There's a website called dndcharacter.com, which is an OSE character generator, like a one-click. Sort of like Morkborg has the Scumbirther. It's sort of like an OSE version of that. And you can export a fillable PDF. That makes it real easy. If you were trying to do like a funnel, that makes it real easy for everybody to have a bunch of characters that they just, as fast as you can click generate. That is not what I want. Alright, let's see. We get it. That is too small. That's probably pretty close. And then I always make a note how many pixels that is. Alright, so we have a staircase here for this thing. So we have, let's see, how do we want it to come down? See, I love the, I'm a huge fan of the fatalities. But I know that you prefer a much more narrative, like character focused. I mean, you have that. I saw you got the physical copies, at least the test prints of your big massive project. Alright, so we got... So for room number 1, I have that's a trap and it's gas that burns. So we're going to do... maybe little grates. Yeah, that looks really cool. You found somebody's publishing that too, right? That looked really cool. I'm eagerly looking forward to checking that whole thing out. And it's all based on you had an Invisible Sun campaign, right? That whole thing was based on Invisible Sun, I believe. And then this, the room that has a gas trap. If we were doing this in color, I would take like, you know, we could go in here. is that looking? Oh, because I'm still on black. Duh. Well, you know, you could go in here. You'd be a little nicer, keep it in the lines, but you could kind of add a little bit of some kind of crusty stuff to it like that. Get in here kind of like this, do some stuff. We'll come back and do that kind of stuff. We'll come back and do at the end. All right. Let's see, 7. Something that tells the dungeons. Oh, we were supposed to roll Tome of Adventure to sign up on that one. All right, we're gonna skip rune number 6. 7 for now. 2 trap ceiling drops. Alright, so number 2 is a ceiling drop. And this is going to have some... It's supposed to have places where the little... We have little micro, like, minions. This whole thing is all Ratman based. So we have, like, little rat pups almost. And when the ceiling drops, there's space for them to get in and out. So... Oh, I'm still on black. I'm not on black anymore. Let's see. Let's get a better. Perfect. Hey, how's it going, Delaware merch? That's not really the behavior I want to do either. That is close. Oh, nice. Cool. I'm just trying to work on a map. I'm using a program I don't use it very often, so I'm trying to find the brushes that do what I want it to do. But this is a multi-part thing. I rolled up a random dungeon using a blog post, 10-room dungeons, and we basically got. And that gave us this little document right here, the Plague Shrine Sewers of the Irresistibly Attractive Vermin. And here's all the room things that we got. And then the other day I threw together, I'm using Krita. I normally use Affinity Designer. I'm trying to use all free programs. So I'm using Google Docs to write it in. I'm using a free software, a free website, Dungeon Scrawl, to like get the rough outline of this. I showed people how really fast you could throw this thing together. And then I'm using Krita, which is like a free drawing program, to draw like little details if you're trying to do something a little closer to like a Dyson Logos, because the Dungeon Scrawl program that I have doesn't have a whole lot of little doodads to drop in here. Affinity just dropped a version 2 also that's like half off from now until I think like the middle of December. I need to pick that up. I love Affinity Suite. It's a great alternative to the Adobe Suite, as long as you don't need video. It doesn't currently have any video options. But I just want a round, just a normal circle brush that's got a little bit of pressure sensitivity to it, but without opacity, without having to go in here and make it from scratch. You'd think Basic would have something like that, but it doesn't. See, it doesn't give me like nice, like a fine liner dots. Anyways. We will just make do. It's like a whole new like language of icons to learn. There we go. This is the guy I think I'm looking for. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. So the first thing I'm going to go do is just make this stuff a little more interesting. Just going in here and drawing some, just some like cracks and stuff. A little bit of, you know, some dirt, some little stones and stuff. And if you kind of think of things in threes, it's a good way of not doing like this kind of stuff everywhere, where it's these really ordered lines. If you kind of think of them as triangles, so if you do like dot and dot, now this one I want to have kind of like away and not in a line with this, and it kind of just keeps things looking a little bit more random, like that. Pro tip, life hack, whatever you want to say. A little strong for, there we go. That looks a little bit more like a crack. And then you can also do things like, if you just kind of trace over a little bit, you kind of get where a little bit of a look where like the stones don't like line up. Let me go through and do all that before I do my rocks. Looks like I'm going to need cool. And this would also be really easy to, if you just printed it out. If you just print this thing out on a piece of paper and you get a pen and just go ham. You can add all kinds of little details. And I'm just going through, I mean, you can real simply just go through and like There's a tick. And let's make it go in a different direction. And make that one look a little more interesting. We can even come in here and clean it up. You know, maybe we do a two-fold like that. That's all you gotta do. And the individual pieces of it might not look all that cool. Like, you know, that's just like a straight line. How does that look like a crack? But when you then multiply it over this entire thing, and you don't have to go and do it, you know, you don't have to make every single thing look like a little unique or put cracks in every, you know, you don't have to go through with that level of detail. You can. That'll look super impressive if you go through and individually draw every single square. But if you're just trying to blaze through this, you're like, you know, I have a game coming up tomorrow and I just want to sit. This is a really cool thing. It's hard for me to do this. You might hear that I'll just completely stop talking because I usually have headphones. Just blast some kind of music, get really grooving, and this becomes like meditative. I should have set up the time-lapse recorder. Krita, the program that I'm using, which, yeah, Krita. It's a free. It's on the Steam store. It's on the Windows Store. I think it's in the Apple Store. It is cross-platform, but it's a free and open source drawing application. So people might be familiar with something like GIMP, which is a free like Photoshop type program. Krita is more drawing, so it's closer to like Procreate. Although I don't believe Krita works on tablets, at least not an iPad. You can get it for Linux as well, for all of my Linux users. So I'm just gonna keep working through this a little bit. Let's see. I guess that gives you guys a good idea of a good view of what I'm doing here. The one thing I find, especially if I'm doing vector, which is I can zoom in as far as I want. If you've ever watched those videos of the art piece where they just zoom in on like the reflection and that's like its own thing and they keep going, that's vector. I have a really bad problem of like zooming out and then realizing I've been drawing bacteria scale things. I should have some kind of music or something for y'all. Don't really know how to get that set up and live on this way. And I think, yeah, I forgot to do it for my YouTube streamers as well. I'm just winning at life today, basically how it's going. And then this room. 3 is like our main, so this whole thing, and I can, this is the plague sewers of the irresistible vermin. That handwriting is absolute trash. But essentially we're looking at a sewer underneath of a city of some kind that has been recently infested with vermin, which are Skaven from Warhammer with the IP scratched off. And there is a plague shrine down here in number 3, and they're using this whole like little setup to try to poison the city. There's some traps. We have an NPC who is a former cult member, who has like partially been converted into a verman. There's a brood queen with some stuff. Like I said, mentioned earlier, there's a couple of like Tucker's Kobold style little rat dudes, little like picturing them as minions that can go around. But that's basically what we're doing with this thing here is. The layout of this we went to a free dungeon generator website, and I just clicked a couple of options that sounded sewery, like winding corridors and tight spaces, and we had it flooded. And then just clicked generate until I got a shape that I liked. And then I took the things that are supposed to be in each room. These aren't like in any kind of an order. When we go and like write like the final PDF to share, these numbers will probably change. But it was just to figure out, okay, so if we have number 3 is the brood queen, or I'm sorry, number 3 is the plague shrine, like where does that in this layout fit? So if we have that there, then like is the brood queen in there in that same room, or do we want her encounter to be a slightly different room? Just basically how we were going to set this whole thing up. And now if you're just joining us, I'm just going through and taking the kind of non-detailed map output that we got from Dungeon Scrawl, the program that we used to build this, really fast. Like, I drew this in like 5 minutes. And we're just kind of making it look a little bit nicer to show people that you can really easily throw something together. At the end of all of this process, I will have a finished PDF that from start to finish I used free resources that you can use for commercial products. And you can follow along with what I did and start throwing stuff up on itch or drive-through of your own material. It's easy. It's fun. Do it. You don't have to charge money for it. Just throw it up there. Anyways. Off of my soapbox rant. Oh, okay. So the program I'm currently using, just because I can draw on it, is Krita. But the map that we made, I made using a program called... Oop, grab the wrong one. Dungeon Scrawl. Yep, Dungeon Scrawl. Now, this is... If you go to dungeonscrawl.com, this is version 2. You can no longer use the output of this directly as a commercial product. You have to buy, there's like a $7 a month premium package that lets you charge money for the things that you make with it. But that wasn't always the case. Version 2 came out like a month ago. If you go to if you go to frequently asked questions over here, if you go down to can I still use version 1, if you click on this link, it's a little bit rougher of a user interface, but it works just the same way. And it's everything that you make in that you can charge money for. So you can put that in a product that you're selling on itch for a couple of bucks. And if you're wondering just how easy this was, you just drag shapes and start building a dungeon. It's like literally this easy. I use this program in games where, excuse me, where the dungeon master wants players to keep track of the maps. Like if we're doing a big mega dungeon and a dungeon crawl, I can do this while we play and not like lose myself in like drawing a map by hand. And if we're playing online, it was really easy for me to screen share like in Discord so that the other players can see our map. It also makes it really easy so that if the dungeon master says, "Oh, it's 30 by 60," and they really meant 60 by 30, that they can tell that I'm drawing a room that's that shape versus that shape. So kind of as you're going, there's kind of a feedback loop that all communication is working well. Anyways, that's Dungeon Scrawl. That's a really cool thing. Everybody should use that. Super great. And it gives you this really nice output. And when you do the export, you can set the pixels per square, so it makes it really easy to import into a virtual tabletop. So you can drop it right into Roll20 or Foundry or Fantasy Grounds, and you can set it to your VTT's settings for the grid sizes, so you don't have to go and do a whole lot of moving your maps around. All right, I'm gonna take 5 because I don't know if anyone can hear. I can barely talk. So let me go grab a drink. I'll be right back. Let's see. Gotta make some kind of. Perfect. All right, BRB. I'm back. Okay, back on all this. It's this guy that I was using. Make that a favorite one. Perfect. All right, back to the drawing. Ooh. I'll show you then, guys. So this is kind of like a secret passage. So we have, this is supposed to be stairs going down. That ends abruptly like in a wall, which is then a big secret passage. But then, to give a kind of, this is all filled with rocks, we can kind of just go in here and even just throwing a few little dots around. And of course I've left that all way too low for anyone to see. There we go. There we go. See? With just a few little... And you vary up the size a little bit. You can just kind of throw some of this around. And you can... This is a process you can spend forever. When it comes to drawing, you know, you can render all the way to the hyper-realistic. But yeah, just you know, 5 seconds of throwing some little dots in this passage made it look a lot more like there's rubble and random shit kind of scattered around. And you can just, you know, go through and just do little dots kind of all over the place. Now it looks like I forgot my door situation is kind of screwed up. When I tried to remake it in the old version, I forgot to add, like, this section here isn't connected. So we can go in and change that. Where is my eyedropper tool? Perfect. So we can go in here. And just draw our own room. Just draw our own connections here. So I just used the eyedropper tool to grab the same color, because it's not pure white. It's close, but like if I grab pure white, yeah, you can see it. So we grab the eyedropper tool. To grab that, let's grab the eyedropper tool. Because these are gray lines, so let's grab that. And get my brush size way back down. Too far. Perfect. And the other one's going to be like here. And the other one's going to be like there. And that one's going to be like that. Alright, perfect. And then eyedropper tool to black. Go back to our brush. Kind of use the outline of the, you can kind of see the tip outline. I'm using that to grab about the same size from the walls there. See, boom, look at that. Can't even tell that was never there. And, oop, almost forgot the special. So I'm going to show you a cool trick with this. Eyedropper tool, grab that gray. Go back to our brush. Now I want to change the drawing mode from normal to multiply. And then, instead of covering over it in solid gray, this will act more like a gray marker. And it will also, like, not... Now, the one thing is I can't go over it twice. So let's add our little... That's not going to work. Perfect. And we got our little shadows back. It's a little rough, but whatever. So the dungeon we're building is this is a multi-part thing. The first thing we did, we randomly generated. We used a blog post, 10-room dungeon by Priestess of Spiders, and that gave us this document where we found out from the different categories from that blog post of the things that we have to have in our dungeon, which I then labeled like just to give me room numbers of each of the different things. Then the other day we used a free program, Dungeon Scrawl, to draw the map that you see here basically, and today we're just filling in some of the details. At the end of this whole process, I'm showing people how to go start from scratch to make a thing that they put up on Itch or Drive-Thru. Either free, pay what you want, or some money. Vermin is more like Skaven. Warhammer Skaven, like rat dudes. But yeah, Ettercaps are kind of, that would work too, yeah. Yeah, well, there's a couple of things, like we have a Vermin Brute, which is a store brand rat ogre. But yeah, and then we used a free dungeon generator website, like one of the ones that gives you like the maps when you click, sort of like Donjon. The one we used is the Watabo or Whatabao, one-page dungeon. Yeah, this guy right here. And we went to this generator and just did new dungeon a bunch of times until we got a shape that we kind of liked, and then exported that into Dungeon Scrawl, where we made the map that you're looking at. And now I'm in another free program, Krita, with a drawing tablet. But you can I got started using one of these little cheap $40 ones. You don't have to go super fancy. It just makes it easy for me to stream. But I'm just showing you how you can then take it and add like little details. Yeah, that website, he has a bunch of really cool ones. I use this all the time. The one-page dungeon is great for dungeons, but I also love the city generator. Of course, it still has my crazy settings. Earlier this year I was working on a blacklight poster. It normally out of the box it normally looks way easier to look at. Yeah, it usually looks more like that. But then you can throw the cities you make in this generator into this thing. Or I'm sorry, which one is it? This one right here, the city viewer, and you can get 3D views, which I have taken screenshots of. I've made harbor towns and taken screenshots of this city viewer of the as the players would be sailing into port, what it would look like. And it's kind of a really rough 3D. It's not super fancy. It doesn't look like a really nice video game or a CGI movie or anything, but throw some filters on it from Photoshop and whatever, and it works. Yeah, I use this so much. I really need to learn how he pronounces his username. I believe the developer is Russian. I know if you follow some of the social media, there's a lot of .ro or .ru links that they share. So I really should learn how you pronounce it. Anyways. Yeah, and the nice thing about all of these, or at least the one-page dungeon, is anything that you make in it, you can use in a commercial project. So you could do what we're doing. You have a dungeon idea, and you need like a nice looking map, so it doesn't look, whatever scratch on a napkin that you do at the tape that you need for your actual game, or your whiteboard drawing or however you do it. But you want something a little bit nicer to throw in a PDF. You can use these and make money from them and not have to give any money back to the developer directly. I believe his stuff is Creative Commons BY, which he just wants, hey, I made this in this generator. But check all that stuff out, specifically if you're doing any of that sort of thing. Some crazy's going on outside here. Alright. So I know I can spend forever going through and making this really pretty. If anybody wants to see something like that, you can go to my... click on my profile, and I have time-lapse videos of me doing map drawing. But I've been doing this for about an hour. I want to wrap up in about I got about another half hour in me. So, but I want to... The idea of this was to put little... So like this room, this number 1, it's a poison trap. So I wanted to throw some little doohickeys in here that kind of imply something's going on. So like I want at the table to be able to just like look at this map and go, oh yeah, room number 1 is the one with the gas vents in it, right? Or this passage down here is like, oh okay, this is the rough stone secret passage. You throw purpose into the original dungeon, just run it without backstory. You can do both. I play a lot of old school RPGs. You may have heard of it, like the OSR. If those terms sound completely foreign to you, you may have heard of Morkborg. But in that style of play, there's a thing called a hex crawl, where you basically have a map and you're just exploring locations. And in that, people need a lot of like content that they can just kind of drop in and use whatever story from that they already have. Yeah. Well, we're looking at another... So, the fun thing about the OSR is the OSR is kind of... So when 3rd edition went into 4th edition, you get, like, the Paizo and all of, like, that kind of scene. The OSR originally started kind of as the 2E into 3E version of that. So yeah, we're about ready to see another whatever's going to happen when WotC drops their new edition. Because they say that it's completely backwards compatible, but it's clearly not. They're clearly changing certain things that... Like, you might be able to kind of use the adventures, but the system itself is changing. But anyways, back to your question about the backstory. I haven't really fleshed it out a whole lot. You absolutely could be doing that. My plan for this whole thing was more to show you from idea to execution to publishing how to do the whole thing, start from scratch, and make a couple of dollars. Or just share it on the internet for free. Yeah, and I think the furthest extent that we got in terms of the backstory from what we were generating was that they were poisoning. So it's the Ratmen this is a sewer underneath of a city. The Ratmen have infiltrated, and they've set up a shrine to a dark god, and they are attempting to spread their little Ratman plague, which converts new people into Ratmen. Like, one of the rooms is one of the things that you generate is an NPC that's non-hostile for players to interact with, and in that case, excuse me, for that guy, we decided it was going to be a former cult member who was partially through his conversion, who was trying to escape and warn the city about what's happening. Right, exactly. And one thing that I really like, if you joined in my other streams or saw my stuff from earlier this week, I cannot recommend Tome of Adventure Design enough. This is the old version. The new version has a brown cover, and then like compass rose, I believe, like in the center of it. But this book is just a giant 300 plus pages of all of the random tables for generating an adventure and story plots you could ever imagine. Like, and one of the things you're like, you have a table that's like, what's the villain's plan? And one of the results is destroy a community. These are all of the results on this table just for that. My YouTube friends, that's all this. Tome of Adventure Design, and this crazy book. Anyways. That's where I got some of this stuff. The article that I was using, let's see, I thought I had a link to it set up and ready to go. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. But anyway, it's the Priestess of Spiders. Let me get that for you. It's also a link in the bottom of my YouTube videos. Nobody needs to listen to that. Here we go. Yeah, if you go to the Priestess of Spiders blog, which is priestessofspiders.blogspot.com, you can search for how to make a 10-room, 30-minute dungeon. And that is the article that I'm following. The prompts. So basically this article says, hey, in a 10-room dungeon, you should have these things. There should be 3 combats. There should be 2 traps. There should be a weird thing. There should be an NPC they can interact with. And there should be 3 areas for them to explore. Kind of goes into... And that's... Their philosophy is that's about what in an old school game that you're really like cranking through stuff fast, that you can get done in, you know, a 3-hour session or so. Right? Exactly. Exactly, yeah. The consequences of like letting this ride could be super fun. Come back after the hex and it's welcome to the Ratburg Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, so anyway, so we followed this blog post, at the bottom of which has some real simple D6 tables to give you for each of those entries, to give you some ideas. So we used a blend of this and then the Tome of Adventure Design to get some more specifics, because obviously the results on this table weren't really specific. But yes, back to like letting it... So then I get into... We generated all that stuff. I basically have a list here of the things that we generated from that blog post. And then I just used these room numbers. They're not in any kind of an order, but it's just to place them and know what I was doing. So like we have a secret passage that gets you... Number 3 is where the Plague Shrine is. There's a Brood Queen, but they're like, you don't necessarily have to interact with them. You don't have, you know, like there's secret passages. So there's a lot of different ways to, I was trying to think of how you could interact with this dungeon that didn't necessarily mean that you just walk in, you fight everyone, you get to the boss battle, and then you leave. Yeah, I've done the Gygax 75 challenge. The Gygax 75 challenge is better as a much bigger thing, like you're trying to create a campaign. The dungeon was just one step of that, and I think it was the weakest of the outlined steps. I think the like region generating stuff and the story generating steps of the Gygax 75 was way more fun to do than the dungeon one. And I think this summer a couple of us from the NSR Discord did that all together, and we got the attention of Ray Otis, the guy who wrote the Gygax 75. And I think the dungeon building, number one, it was like crazy. So like the first week you were just thinking of 4 or 5 ideas, and like what cool movies you've seen that like were about that idea. And then week 3, the dungeon is like, all right, cool. Now you're gonna need 4 levels with 40 rooms each or whatever it was. Fully populated and everything. And there's a bunch of people who we got really wild with our world building. And so it got to the point of filling a dungeon, and it's like, well, I'm gonna need, well, shit, now I have to come up with like a whole bestiary from scratch. But yeah, sometime I'll have to show the results of my Gygax 75 challenge. If you picked up the Exalted Funeral free RPG day / summer sale / Exalted Funeral Con, like the freebie pack, there is a little regional hex map that I have both as just an image file, and I think I have it as a Fantasy Grounds module. But that is the world map or the region map that I made for the Gygax 75 challenge. That was my first. I was like, I used that to learn how to use Obsidian as well. But it was fun. The Gygax 75 challenge was really fun to do it like as a group. To do it like so that you're all, and because of the way that it's set up week by week, it was fun to like compare notes and to like work on it kind of together as a group. That was like really, really fun. I don't know that I would necessarily use it as a really good like as the best example of something like that. If you were looking for a real good guide on building a setting, I think something a little more detailed is probably cooler. It was a little bit more like detailed than a fun prompt. You know, it was like a little bit more effort than that, but like not quite enough and not quite good enough information to be a good guide on, you know. It's not like the Kobold Press's Guide to World Building or something like that. Crazy to think though that like that basic advice was all the way back from like the first year D&D was out. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, the Gygax 75 challenge is a free thing you can get on itch if you just Google the Gygax 75 challenge. If you Google that, you'll find an itch page for that for free. But it's like a little workbook for building the local area, a starting town, a dungeon for you to go into, and then I think a little bit about week 5 was like, and then just keep working on it. But it's put together by a guy named Ray Otis, who has the really cool podcast, the Plundergrounds. But it's a fun little thing, especially, like I said, I did it as a group. There were 6 or 7 of us, I think, who did it this past June all together. That was really, really fun. I'm just yabbering away. So we got this. Put that back together. We are. I'm showing folks that you can use free programs to build a little RPG supplement. The first couple of days we used a blog post to generate a dungeon like outline. Let's see, give it to you here. We used some random tables to generate the different rooms that we would need to have. We used then some free programs or some free websites to generate a map outline. And then I'm just showing you that you can go in with a free program. I'm using Krita, but GIMP would work, or, you know, any kind of free drawing application. MS Paint. You could you could do this kind of thing in MS Paint. You could print this out and just do all this with a pen. But I'm just showing folks that like you could go in and customize your map by doing things like, you know, adding little cracks to the floor, or adding little bits of rock to the room. Like I showed, all the little pebbles and everything in this little section are stuff that we drew afterwards. And you can even use, so here, like I'll even do, it's a little tough with a mouse. Oh, those rocks are really tough with a mouse. But, you know, you could do it with a mouse. Here's my handiwork with a mouse right here. You add some little pebbles and stuff everywhere. Yes, so that was what we used. The one-page dungeon generator is exactly what I used to get this outline. I just went into it and clicked, you know, create as a bunch of times until I got something that I liked. And the nice thing about the one-page dungeon generator is you can use the maps as they are in a product that you pay for. So you can throw them into a PDF document and put it on itch, and you know, pay what you want, or charge $1 for it, or whatever you want to do. And that is ultimately the goal for all of this. Is I want to show folks that without spending a single penny, you can go from having an idea, or even like going from not having an idea, just having a prompt that you roll some dice on and get some ideas from, and in a couple of days throw it on itch and share it with your friends. And it's kind of basically also turned into like a hangout. Yeah, there's a bunch of different solutions. And if you want to start going into, hey Dan, thanks for stopping in. It was fun hanging out. I'll probably be doing this tomorrow. But yeah, there's a bunch of different programs. Like, I'm using Krita for this. I normally do my art stuff in the Affinity Suite. Particularly, I tend to live in Affinity Designer. I own all of them, and I can switch back and forth with the pixel persona to do like lots of my painting. That's where most of my my work is done now. Just because it's really easy to go back and forth with using vector and not using vector. But for folks who don't know, I am the author and illustrator for this thing, Desiccated Temple of Loka, which you can get from Exalted Funeral, or my itch page. Links are all in the bio, yada yada. But these maps in here were originally drawn in Krita. Let me see. Here's the bigger version. But these maps here were all drawn in the program that I'm currently looking at. And then they were drawn using I currently have the nice fancy tablet that, like, this is a monitor that I can draw on with one of those pens. This is what I originally used. This is a $40 Huion. This is like a giant version of your laptop's little touchpad. But you can draw on this with a pen, and it works kind of like a mouse that you just, you gotta look at your computer screen. But that's what I used initially. And right after the pandemic, these were $40. I think that's about the price you can get from these days. This particular one, I could plug into my phone, and like this half of this tablet acted as my touchpad, which was kind of fun to play with. I was using, who makes it? Autodesk? The Autodesk Sketchpad app. But anyways, if you have a tablet, I believe you can get Clip Studio Pro you can get for Android. And then on iPad, there's, Procreate is kind of the gold standard, but there's a lot of different stuff you can get. Alright. So I want to, this is the Plague Shrine. So So I kind of want to have... Yeah, and we're doing this real bad. You know, this art's gonna be real bad. Boom! There's a throne. Look at that. Yeah, no worries. I'm probably wrapping this up. I've been doing this since 2 o'clock. Probably 3:30, like another 10 or 15 minutes is probably all I'm doing tonight. But we will do this again tomorrow. I'll live stream about 2 p.m. Eastern till about 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that. I'm also on YouTube. All my links are in the bio. I am duvelmandice here. I'm duvelmandice on everywhere. Actually, I might be wrapping this up now. My phone just told me it's got 5% left. Let's see if I can plug it in where it is. Come here, phone. Ah, perfect. Uh, 10 is the Brood Queen. So, kind of want to do... this. What the heck? Oh, multiply. That's what's wrong. There we go. Now it'll work like an eraser. So this room has a Brood Queen. So this is like the queen of the vermin. Kind of got this tripod set up in a weird place, so we're bending all over weird to get to this. And we got like a little bed. We got like a little dresser of some kind. And really the less details you put, the better for stuff like this. Because... well, it looks a little rough. At this scale, you got to remember you're kind of always going to be looking at it like this. And it's more of like a cumulative effect. Where, you know, just a few things here and there will give you... up on a dais, like yar. And let's see, number 6, something useful, map that shows a passage. Okay. 4 is the rival explorer, this guy here. So there is a rival explorer in here, so we'll make sure he's kind of, this is kind of set up like a cage where we got a little portcullis going on. We can go looking to see if we've got, let's see, ooh, that's real big. Do we have something that will do? That's pretty close. That's a little close, but like straw. That's a little rough. Yeah, exactly. So in number 4, we have the NPC. This is a rival explorer who is a former cult member that is partially in the process of being converted into a verman who was trying to escape to warn the townsfolk. So So number 4 is our friendly NPC that our party can talk to, who's kind of turned on this whole situation that's going on in here. Whereas number 8 is one of the rat ogres. So it's like the biggest brute singles. It's a really strong single enemy. So he's kind of acting as the guard, right? So this dude can't do anything without having to pass through this dude. And then number 2 is a ceiling trap guarded by, in this room is a bunch of little mini rat dudes. And the way that this trap is set up, when it falls the whole way down, these dudes can still like get through it. So they use them kind of as a second level of protection against this dude. And then if you go past them, his only other escape this way is there is a stairway that leads down into nothing, into a solid wall, which is a secret passage that can take them to the tunnel that goes all the way around to right behind where the plague throne is, where like the source of the infection is going to be coming from. And number 10 would be the Queen's Chamber off to the side. So there is a possible way of like going through this as players and dealing with the problem of the Plague Throne, which is like poisoning the water source. Like that's the way it's going to spread its infection. There's a way of dealing with that without like having to deal directly with the Brood Queen possibly. You can also kind of, if this is the entrance, so here we have like a spiral staircase at the top leading down. So that gives us a lot of options for where the players can go. They can kind of go off into this area, and there's some like little dead ends. You know, there's lots of different directions they can go. It looks fairly linear if you're trying to just go from here to here, like you would just. But even when you get down to this section, we will have it where one of these two passages is more or less safe, and then some kind of way of it indicating. You know, like maybe this little section of this hallway is much sketchier looking, but that means that's because this room is basically unused. So if you go down through the sketchy passageway that's like all cobwebs and all kinds of bullshit in here, which might make players go like, ooh, let's not go that way, let's go this way, but like this is where the guards are, you know. That kind of a situation. So there's a lot of like weird, even though all of this was randomly generated, the layout was just from a random generator, everything that fills it is from a random generator. I love that kind of stuff because of the idea sparks that it gives you. Yeah, there might be. Yeah, there might. So when you play this, that's the other thing is I kind of like, especially when I'm making something for other people, when this is not necessarily something that's just like prep for my home game. I like to let I like to leave little sprinkles that where you're like, oh, is like you're asking any defectors that remember what they were before the plague. So that kind of stuff, I love leaving bits and pieces that make, when you look at it, you kind of ask story questions like that I don't really answer. Like in the module that I have a lot of weird, like there's, so in Desiccated Temple of Loka, the module that I made, you're exploring a former aquatic temple that is like dried out. Kind of inspired by, like they find the cities in the Sahara that were there when the Sahara was like a green place that had lots of water, and then it 10,000 years ago it dried out completely, but there's still little civilization evidence, little ruins that they find like in the middle of the desert. Kind of inspired by that, but in that you find there's like textbooks about like aquatic life. There's like a full alchemy set off to one side that players can get into, but there's a couple different things that and elements of the story, without getting into spoilers too much of that module, where if they interact with certain things but don't, like, finger quotes, deal with it, where they kind of leave it as an open situation where there are there's built-in like long-lasting repercussions. Right, exactly. Yeah, and there's lots of different, yes, that's the other thing about prep is my home group are super chaotic. Super chaotic. That game was that game got fairly inebriated at it, so it had its normal no plans, survive, contact with the enemy, in addition to the players being literal lunatics. Yeah, yes, yeah, we're there. Yes, we're there. Like, oh, I'm gonna derail your thing. We are gonna become friends with the rat dudes. We're just gonna turn this whole thing upside down. Yeah, in my home game, they were being murder hobos, so I tried to instill a little bit of like you can't. I was trying to instill like you don't just have to kill every single creature in every single encounter that you come to. Like you can try diplomacy, but I did it by they like slaughtered a bunch of kobolds. They like tracked a kobold party through the woods to the kobold like village and then killed all of them. And so I was like, well, okay, so you find like the brood, the like babies, and then they like adopted them. So now we went from total murder hoboism to we're essentially playing the Sims. It turned into like a cozy game where a ton of everything I was doing to try to like get away from having to take care of these kobold babies. They just double down every time. Which is why, so if you go to my itch page, my big thing is going to be that Desiccated Temple of Loka or my hex tiles. But I also, for a game jam, actually using this exact same system, this 10-room dungeon thing, I have a module called the Debt Collection, the Clockwork Bureaucrat Debt Collection Agency, which is sort of like this is all Skavens with the numbers, with the serial numbers scratched off. That's Modron and GIF with the serial numbers scratched off. I made that in the time period between WotC announcing Spelljammer and then the thing that actually came out for Spelljammer. So like while people were like, oh man, Spelljammer is really cool, I grabbed some of the classic creatures from that setting. The little, if you don't know, so Modron are little clockwork mechanical dudes, and GIF are big, like Edwardian British. So think like big pith helmets, like all the bad like colonialism, like that kind of thing. Yes, but I came up using this 10-room dungeon thing, and the prompts that I got, it became this like absurdist Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett-y thing where a druid, an old druid, had gone senile, but before he had gone senile, he had gotten a bunch of his druidic. He had made a deal with like an order of law and bureaucracy. He was like cataloging all the creatures in the forest. He was like a taxonomist, and signed a deal. And part of the deal was like he owed the Modrons, rare specimens of creatures or whatever, and he wasn't fulfilling his end. So a Modron had been sent to collect the debt. But so we got a little robot dude trying to collect it, like as a debt collector, like a very modern, we're trying to reach you about your extended warranty. But then there's a druid who's lost his mind, that if you make him escape, he just like starts messing with stuff. It's a silly little module, but using this exact same process, came up with something totally, vibe-wise, totally different. Yeah, exactly. You know, the bad guys are the debt collectors, and yeah, it's just... It was a fun idea that I had. I think 3 people have downloaded it. It looks really cool, though. I spent a bunch of time making the cover of it look cool. Is there any other of these rooms? I really need to figure out something that tells the dungeon history. And so we got, this guy has a map. Ooh, what brush have I got? The weird one still. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap stuff up. My phone is dying. The family is about ready to start showing up from the things the family are up to today. I will be doing this again tomorrow. I'm streaming it here on TikTok. I'm streaming it also on YouTube, so the video on demands are available if you miss one. Yesterday's YouTube video on demand has 45 minutes of silence at the beginning of it. As soon as I can, that's been processed and I can edit it, that will be cut short. But thanks everybody for hanging out. Liquid Hot, I think that's Marma? Liquid Hot Marma, thanks for hanging out with us. Anybody else who's still hanging out? Let's see if I can see. Nope, just us. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun, everybody. I will be doing this again tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. So that's like 23 hours from now. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with me. YouTube, thanks for hanging out with me. This has been great. I will catch everybody tomorrow. Oh, God. What's up, RPG TikTok? So I just finished a live. Today we use Krita, a free art program. To hand draw some details on our map. To be fair, I find it is entirely impossible to draw and talk to people at the same time, so we didn't get a lot of progress done. Tomorrow I'll probably show some, like, layout stuff. Tomorrow I'll get into a little bit of layout stuff.